This happened in 2018 when I was in 6th grade. I went to a small middle school in upstate New York, tucked away in a town nobody's ever heard of unless you live nearby. It was one of those towns where nothing ever really happens, no serious crime, no weird news stories, just quiet streets and old trees. The weird thing is, the story I'm about to tell you, I've never seen anything about it online. No news reports. No school emails. Nothing. It's like it just disappeared. But it happened. I still remember the week it started because it was just after Halloween. Our town did this thing every year where kids could bring leftover candy to school and donate it for care packages sent overseas. That Monday, the hallways still smelled like Twizzlers and peanut butter cups. Nothing felt off at first. Just colder mornings, more bare trees, and the early darkness that always made waiting for the bus feel a little lonelier. It was the second week of November when people started talking about the man in the cornfield. At first, it was just something kids whispered about at recess, how someone had seen a tall figure standing way out past the school fence, just at the edge of the old cornfield that bordered the back of the playground. The field had been abandoned for years, with dry, half-harvested stalks still standing like a graveyard no one wanted to clear. Most people laughed it off. Maybe a farmer. Maybe some hiker. But then, more kids said they saw him too. Always just standing. Never moving. Always watching. No one really panicked though, not YET. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were when we had gym in the afternoon, and I always brought an extra pair of socks since the locker room floor was disgusting. That day was cold enough that your breath came out in little clouds, and the grass behind the school crunched under your shoes. After gym, our class was walking back across the back lot toward the school building, taking the path that cut along the chain-link fence that bordered the cornfield. And that's when I saw him. At first, I didn't really see him, I just noticed that the other kids up ahead had gone quiet. A few had stopped walking completely and were staring past the fence. So I looked too. There, maybe 40 or 50 feet away, standing in the brittle brown stalks, was a man. Just standing. Perfectly still. He was tall, too tall, maybe. Wearing a long dark coat, something like a trench coat, and a wide-brimmed hat that cast his face in shadow. His arms hung straight at his sides. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Didn't make a sound. Just stood there, like he'd been waiting all day for us to notice. A girl next to me, Danielle, I think, whispered, "Why is he just standing there?" Nobody answered. A couple kids giggled nervously. One kid tried to act tough and yelled, "Hey, creep," but the man didn't even flinch. Then our gym teacher, Coach Myers, came jogging up behind us, asking what the holdup was. When he saw what we were looking at, he paused for maybe half a second, then said, "All right, inside." Now, we shuffled back into the building. He didn't say anything else, just kept looking back over his shoulder as we walked. When I turned back for one last look, the man was gone. Not walking away. Not running. Just gone. After class, Coach Myers made a quick announcement that the field was off limits during recess until further notice, and that was it. The teachers acted like it was nothing. No one called home. No school alert. Nothing. But at lunch, it was all anyone could talk about. Some kids said he was a ghost. Others swore he was a farmer who died in that field years ago. But to me, he didn't look like a ghost. He looked like someone real, and that was somehow worse. The next day, everything felt off. Nobody was talking about math or history or gym class. All anyone cared about was whether he would be there again. The teachers acted like nothing had happened. When someone brought up the guy in the field during morning announcements, our homeroom teacher, Ms. Delaney, just gave that tired smile teachers use when they want to avoid answering something. But around third period, things got real. We were in language arts, sitting in small groups, working on some group assignment about metaphors. I was only half paying attention. The kid across from me, Logan, was doodling on his folder when he suddenly looked up, stiffened, and whispered, "He's back." Everyone turned toward the window. Our classroom looked out over the rear parking lot and part of the fence that bordered the cornfield. And just like before, standing a few feet inside the fence line, was the man. Only this time, he was closer. His coat looked heavier today. Still that same wide-brimmed hat. But this time, I swear I could make out more of his face. Pale skin. Something dark smeared across his jawline, mud maybe, or something else. And he wasn't just standing still anymore. He was pacing, slow, dragging one foot behind him like it was injured or fake or like it didn't belong to him. Then he stopped and turned to face our classroom window directly. Even from that distance, I could feel it. He was looking at us. Ms. Delaney stood up and walked to the window. Her smile dropped the second she saw him. She backed away, quickly grabbed the classroom phone, and started talking in a low, urgent voice. Seconds later, the intercom crackled. "Attention staff, please initiate lockdown procedures immediately. This is not a drill." A quiet panic rippled through the room. Ms. Delaney slammed the phone down, pulled the blinds shut, and told us, louder than I'd ever heard her, "Everyone under your desks. Now." The lights went off. The door was locked. We all crouched down in silence, the air thick with that kind of fear you can't explain, only feel. A few kids were crying quietly. Others were trying to act brave. But nobody spoke. We sat like that for over half an hour. No one told us what was going on. No updates. Just silence. Every creak of the floor above us, every gust of wind outside, felt like something coming closer. Finally, the intercom clicked again. "The lockdown is over. You may resume normal activities." That was it. Ms. Delaney unlocked the door, turned on the lights, and told us to go back to reading. Like nothing had happened. But when I glanced at her hands, they were still shaking. The rest of the day moved in a weird, foggy blur. Nobody was really paying attention in class, and the teachers didn't push us. It felt like everyone was trying to pretend things were normal, like if we all just acted like everything was fine, then maybe it would be. But it wasn't. By the time the final bell rang, the sky outside was already dimming. It gets dark early in November, especially out here, where the trees tower over the sidewalks and cast shadows even before the sun goes down. I walked home with my friend Nathan that day. He lived just a few houses down from me, so we usually cut through the back lot behind the school, walked along the edge of the woods, and took the shortcut through a trail that led straight into our neighborhood. We didn't say much at first. Just the sound of our backpacks bouncing and the crunch of leaves under our shoes. Then we heard footsteps behind us. At first, we thought it was just another kid catching up. But when we turned to look, there was no one. That's when Nathan stopped walking and said, "Do you hear that?" I did. There was this soft, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled through the leaves. It was coming from the woods to our left. We turned slowly, and that's when I saw him. He was standing behind a tree, watching us, closer than ever before, maybe 30 feet away. His coat was dirtier now, the hem torn like it had been dragging through the forest floor. His hat was tilted forward, just enough to hide his eyes in shadow. But I didn't need to see them. I could feel them. And then, he took one step forward. Just one. Deliberate. Slow. His foot dragged behind again, same as before, like it didn't work properly. But he didn't lurch like someone hurt. He moved like someone who wanted to move that way. Nathan whispered, "Run." And we did. We didn't stop until we were inside Nathan's garage, panting, staring at each other, trying to make sense of what we saw. I told my mom everything when I got home. She called the school, but they said the man was no longer on school property and the situation had been resolved earlier in the day. Whatever that meant. Later, I heard from another kid that the police showed up again. They searched the field, the woods, the parking lot, nothing. Not a single trace. No footprints. No coat. Nothing. But I know what we saw. He was there. And he was watching. The school never officially said anything. There were no announcements the next day. No emails home. Just a normal Friday morning, like the lockdown and the man in the woods never happened. But the kids knew. You could see it in the way everyone kept looking over their shoulders at recess, how we avoided the windows, how no one went near the back fence anymore, even the ones who used to act tough. Coach Myers started parking his truck by the cornfield every morning, just sitting there with the engine running and a coffee in his hand. No one said why. A week later, they put up a sign behind the playground. Private property, do not enter. It had always been private land, but nobody had cared until now. Then winter came early that year. Snow buried the field, and the shadows from the bare trees got longer and sharper. Eventually, people stopped talking about him. The teachers acted like they'd forgotten. The story faded the way scary stories do when real life keeps moving. But I didn't forget. Because 2 months later, in late January, I was walking home alone after staying late for an after-school art club. The sun had already dipped behind the hills, and the sky was that pale winter blue that turns everything cold and quiet. As I passed by the old trail entrance, the one we used to cut through, I stopped. Something was different. There, in the fresh snow just off the path, were footprints. Just one set. Big. Deep. Leading into the woods. And next to them, partially buried in the snow, was a wide-brimmed black hat. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I just stared at it until the cold finally forced me to walk away. I didn't tell anyone this time. What would I even say? I don't know who he was. I don't know what he wanted. Maybe he was just trying to scare us. Maybe he was looking for someone. Or maybe he's still out there. Waiting. Watching.